Vlambeer on stage. And I will just pass the microphone. Yo, yo, yo.
So, yeah, hi. We're Vlambeer, and we're going to give a good talk about sensible nonsense. To quickly introduce ourselves, I'm Rami, I do the business and development at Vlambeer. And this here is Jan Willem, and he does the game design at Vlambeer. So, sensible nonsense. Nice. We're going to show you 5 games, and we're going to ask you, what do these 5 games have in common? The first one is Faz. The second one is Metroid. The third one is Team Fortress 2. The fourth one is Flywrench. And the fifth one is Half-Life. Well, the thing they have in common is that they all have consistent, solid fiction. And fiction is not the same thing as narrative. It's a different thing. A narrative is a sequence of story events that follow with a start and a beginning and a middle and all that. Fiction is just that thing in the background that you have that is like the world from which everything is built. And these games are good games, and they have a really consistent fiction. The fiction is solid, it stays the same, it doesn't change, it doesn't have anything in there that is sort of weird or out of place or odd. It's just there, it's solid. And it's applied to everything. It's not the fiction isn't just applied to the story. It's applied to the environment, it's applied to the audio, it's applied to even the gameplay ties into the fiction. Everything is this one giant sort of heap of
squirming heap
things connected to the fiction. Yeah. Important thing is that there are no loose ends. So it all ties back. It fits like a glove. Everything is spot on. Everything works together. So let's take another look at these 5 games and try to point out where those things are. So let's start with Fez. Has everybody played Fez? Who has played Fez? That guy played it a lot. Lovely. So this is okay. There might be some spoiler-ish things.
Close your ears.
If you still want to play Fez and don't want tiny spoilers, please close your ears or your eyes and everything. This is a place you go to in Fez, and it's a place from. It's a different place than the place you usually walk in. The usual thing in Fez is you have this 2D world and you can switch it around, and then there are different things on this on the sides of things. This place is just a flat world. You can rotate it, but there's nothing on the backside and there's nothing on the sides. It's just this flat thing, and it's sort of the lore in Fez. In the lore of Fez, in the fiction of Fez, this place makes a lot of sense, and it does so in this particular world. In this particular way, but it isn't like shouting at you like, this is this thing and I'm trying to explain it to you, so please just understand it. It just goes like, this is this place and it's here and it makes sense.
Yeah, this is super pretty. So the thing about Fez, the horrible thing that made it take 4 years to make, or 5, 6, 7, I don't know. Everything in this world means something, and they're not telling you, Phil Fish knows everything and makes everything with that knowledge. So if you see that pole over there with the water pigeon, what are those things called? Seagulls. That thing actually means something in the game. And the first time you play through Fez, you're just walking past, see, oh, nice drawings on the wall, and hey, look, it's a pole. And then after a while, you beat the game and you notice, hey, there are things missing in the areas with those poles. What do they mean? And Phil Fish knew that all along, and his entire game was built from that, and suddenly all that stuff clicks, and there is so much more to everything you'll ever see in that game, and that works really well. Yeah,
you walk into those purple things that I just pointed out, you walk through them, you walk past them throughout the game, and you're not quite sure what they mean, but they mean something, and you figure that out as you walk past more of them. Again, he's not shouting at you like, this thing means something. it's in that world, it makes sense in that world, and you figure it out if you look for it.
And he doesn't even want you to know.
No, probably he
It's
doesn't.
just there.
So let's try Metroid. Same thing, basically, but
Yeah, Metroid is crazy atmospheric. Everybody who played proper Metroid games probably knows that. Like, look at this ugly stuff, but when you're there, that's your life, and you live there, and you know there's so much stuff that you don't have a clue about, and you know that you could probably beat the game in 10 minutes if you knew the stuff. But the game is not really telling you, and you just have to find out yourself, and there's so much stuff behind that you don't get to see, and that's probably only in the minds of the creators. And it's crazy. Like, it gives you this whole feeling of, damn, I'm fucked.
yeah, like the thing is, this planet from the original Metroid, it implies a lot of history through really simple means. It's just not shouting at you. Again, it's just something implied. It's in the background. So let's move on to Team Fortress. Did anybody know that Team Fortress has the most ridiculous, like, huge backstory ever? Like, the backstory is sort of that this guy had 2 children, and then he kind of liked making weapons, and then he had a lot of land. He was rich. He had his company called Manco, and then he split his land and told his kids to fight over it. That is the backstory of Team Fortress 2.
And it's a horrible story, but that doesn't really matter because everything is kept in mind while they make it. And when you hear those guys shouting while they're just playing some team-based shooter, everything is built towards that and hints towards that. But they might even make all that stuff up on the spot, but it fits, and it kind of leaks through to the player.
One of the characters will actually make a joke about another character's mom if they shoot each other, which is kind of ironic given the backstory. But it all works out, and it's there, and you don't like. It's not on the front; it's there, but it allows for a really consistent, solid world. Flywrench sort of has a similar thing. Flywrench does have this story, which is implied. Again, you have these planets and really psychedelic stuff.
Yeah, and the whole game is made in that stuff. Like, if you've seen this and you played the game and you listen to it, and then you see this actually means a lot more than just those lines and the gameplay. Even though it's a super gameplay-heavy, difficult game, it's not just that. Like, everything makes sense. That it's a super gameplay-heavy game makes sense in that game because of all the consistencies and how well made everything is.
And
this guy is cool.
Yeah. Then Half-Life again. In Half-Life, it was probably one of the first games that got that show thing right, where they just show a lot of things that imply a lot of life and background and world and atmosphere. And then you have this G-Man, and nobody really quite knows what he is, but he's there, and again, he's implying something. I'm not even quite sure that the people who made G-Man...
They probably have their own theories, and they work from that, but the fact is that they think about it, and it's there, and...
They have the score they agree on,
and
like
they're not telling the player.
So the big question, what does this have to do with us? Why are we talking about this? We make small, simple, arcadey games, right? You have this thing where people, you know, if we read about one of our games on the internet or something, you have this thing that is a typical Vlambeer game. It's this thing, and for a lot of people, I think they would assume that means that it's tightly designed,
small, simple arcade game,
minimalistic, a small, simple arcade game. But we started thinking about that, and we kind of came to the conclusion that there's something else that we always do when we're making games. So yeah, it's true. We make small, simple arcade games. Yeah, definitely. But we spent ages on our fiction, and we never really show it. Every single one of our games has a tight, consistent fiction that we discuss, that we argue about, that we then figure out, and that we then agree on. That forms the core of the world the game takes place in. But you feel it as a player, and you know it somewhere deep down. You feel this. There's nothing inconsistent, and the inconsistency, if there were an inconsistency, it would take you out of the game. You would somehow you know, it would bother you.
Nasty.
It's wrong. So having a good fiction, we think, helps us make
Yeah, the
better
whole
games.
you feel it, but we don't show it. Well, that main thing for that is that we know it, and we don't care about what you think. But it really, that's yeah, we do of course. But that you know, working from that gives us a huge sort of advantage over us who don't think about that. I don't know if those people exist, but. So I'm gonna show some of our stuff. This is a game called Super Great Box. Who didn't play Super Great Box? Okay. It's okay. I'm sorry. So the thing about Super Great Box, it's a sort of kind of old school, minimalist, hardcore arcade game with accessible, nice, modern game design dressing poured over it. And this game is as low on story as any other Super Great Box. So the thing with this is what we never show to the player, but we have this whole story behind it, and we don't tell anyone. Because you know that guy has to be picking up crates and shooting monster for a reason, because then we know how to build our game. Like Super Great Box has 3 levels: construction yard, rocket silo, and the moon temple. And those aren't just, oh, let's make a laboratory. Laboratories are cool, or let's do a jungle level. To us, that stuff makes sense. And it doesn't really matter to the player because they don't know it makes sense. But if you look at this building, that's the rocket silo. He's on his way there. And then here's the rocket silo, which is the second level, which progresses to the place where all those evil monsters came from, which is a temple on the moon. So he must have taken that rocket, and now he's on the moon fighting those monsters. And you see this big statue that actually rises when you collect more crates, but it doesn't really do anything at the top. But that's some kind of alien monster, extra-dimensional deity who made all this shit happen. And you can't beat him or anything, but it's there for us, and nobody cares about the story. And if you play Super Great Box for the story, you're stupid. But we work that way, and that actually helps us, because every time we add something, we know what to add. So this is another game we made called Radical Fishing, and it's like a sort of casual flash game with really absurd humor about a redneck guy shooting fish for money. Yay! So this is the trailer, and this is Billy. And Billy has some problems with his wife because he went out fishing and he didn't call her or anything. And it kind of sucks because he's afraid to go home, so he just keeps doing that sort of senseless violence, and it's actually quite a sad story, you know. He's just sitting there not knowing what to do with his life except for murdering fish, because he's afraid when he gets home his wife will murder him. So there's this whole motivation behind this sort of casual game with this nice 3-way game design and upgrades and shit, but he's doing stuff for a reason, and we're not gonna tell you because it will sound ridiculous and it will take huge amounts of time, but it's there, you know, and that helps us make the game.
Well, it helps us, for example, write the descriptions in the shop.
Yeah.
Like one of those things.
Important. So this is a game called Luftrauser. It's a 2-dimensional dogfighting arcade game, and we made it in 2 days.
2 days, yeah,
with
2 days.
Vlambeer and some other people, and it's just a dogfighting game. But we decided on this sort of heavy theme-based thing, so we were making a World War II Thunderbirds game. That was our sort of point of origin. So every time we were coding or drawing or whatever, our head was going World War II Thunderbirds, World War II Thunderbirds, World War II Thunderbirds, which doesn't really help focusing, but this game is super consistent, and even if there are loose ends in the fiction or whatever, those are leaking out World War II Thunderbirds, which is even better. And it's a super simple game, but I think it shows that in a jam game, it's worth putting effort into like this fiction stuff. A lot of people make super unfinished games for jams, and I think every jam game we did is this whole complete experience. We made like Yeti Hunter, which you can play here.
Yeah.
What else did we make? Glitch Hiker,
We worked on
Infinite
Glitch.
SWAT. Every jam game we make is this complete thing. And even though our themes might be silly or stupid about redneck shooting stuff or whatever, we make sure that makes sense in our world. And nothing is random in our world because it it makes sense, you know? And even if it doesn't really make sense in a traditional way, it makes sense to us and in our fiction.
So we're gonna switch quickly to GODZ, which is a game we made. I think, did you bring a mouse? You probably
it's
want
in my
a mouse.
bag. Can you get it?
Yeah, sure.
So this is a game we made for a website called Venus Patrol, which is an upcoming blog that will sort of pick out all the cultural relevant new games on the bold frontiers of art. And he asked us to make a game for the Kickstarter, and we're thinking, cultural relevancy, let's see how far we can push this fiction thing, and it's at the bottom of my bag, probably.
Holy shit.
All right.
Oh, what is in there?
My dirty underwear.
Oh.
So we decided to push this stuff as far as we could and make this world with themes that wouldn't make sense to most people and be completely serious about it and see if we can make that world work. So that's why we're showing GODZ, I guess, to prove you that I think it worked out pretty well. So let me tell you about GODZ. You have sound? So GODZ is a gangster rap-inspired first-person shooter that takes place on Venus. Yeah. So this is GODZ. This is the start of the game. I'm breaking free of my Venus Supermax prison. The guards are all... It's basically like a Wolfenstein-style game. It's a lot faster, but, you know, old-school 2D planes, first-person shooter, and we kind of wanted to do this stuff super serious. You hear like the soundtrack is rapping in Venusian. So with this game, like all the levels, everything there makes sense. You know, there are jails here with dead guys and there's ammo and you know, I'm on my way to go to the top of the record executives slash gods because it's also very religious, this game. I'm going to the top of his building. It's a big hotel on Venus. So yeah, this game is just, you know, it all seems really stupid, but we think in this, the story is probably one of the biggest part of this game while you're just playing the gameplay, but the gameplay is there to get you through Venus, you know? This is this heroic tale of this guy who, I don't know what happened. It's probably like some crack deal that went wrong and he got in jail and he's also a rapper. And now he's on his way to, let me show you some other levels. Suggestions, Rami?
Sewers, probably.
Sewers. Oh, you're also shanking them, which is cool prison stuff. So it's all gameplay, this game, you know, it's about shooting and taking down these monsters, but with this kind of purpose, like you go from the jails and then you escape through the sewers to his basements with fancy recording apparature into his 5 million star hotel. And yeah, it like this place, it's sewers and we built from that gangster thing and it's so... Say something smart, Rami.
These are even gangster sewers, I suppose.
Yeah.
Like, the thing with GODZ is it's really easy if you're making a game that is somewhat, you know, ridiculous, to get lost in randomness. And having something really solid, a foundation that you agree on, to get your inspiration from, or to help you out figure out...
Oh, secret. Wait.
To help you figure out certain things or make certain decisions can really help. Let's just skip to the hotel, I think.
All right, to the end of the hotel.
Yeah,
so
just go lobby.
When you're playing this game, it's all shooting and hardcore, and you can go for high scores or violence, whatever. But once you're nearing the end of the game, that violence has become a part of your life because you're a fucking G, you know? You're up there to mess people up, shank them in the face, shoot them down. Because that's what you do, and you have this attitude. You're a badass, you know? And not in a way like, oh, look at my huge armor and how heavy my walking animation is, and I have guns and I stamp people in the face. But it's a necessity to survive on the streets, you know. Even though you're not on the streets in this game, because this is the story of when you were imprisoned. But I suck at this level. So now you just want to get to that guy and shoot him in the face, you know, and rush through the level and become the gun god yourself, because that's what you are. Look at all the guys he killed, you know. And he's just doing it because he has to, pretty much.
Did you know while making this game we listened to more 50 Cent, Notorious B.I.G. and all that stuff?
Yeah, we had like bad playlists with both Tupac and Biggie.
We were quoting rap things.
Alright. So now he's calling his homies to pick him up. We're completely serious about all this because that's the only way we could combine all these things into a game, and that's where the fiction thing comes in, you know. It allows you to build everything from one direction, and even if we think different things about what is happening here right now, we're thinking about it and we're using it to make our game. And to me, this is one of the most beautiful moments I've ever put in a video game, you know. And I'm serious about that, and you know, you can see the tears on my eyes.
So the thing is being completely like
Conclusion.
So the thing is, even if you have a lot of nonsense in your game from an objective point of view, in your game it can make a lot of sense. And being completely serious about your fiction, spending time on your fiction and doing all that stuff will definitely help you make better games.
Yeah, nobody's gonna play our games for the story, but it's there if you want it, and we think it's well made.
So thank you. We were Vlambeer. This is our website, our Twitter.
Yeah.
Are there any questions? Lovely.
So the question is if we have examples of games with inconsistent fiction that are broken. I think most games that you're not playing right now have that problem.
Limping?
What?
Limping?
What's it? Oh yeah, what I hate in video games, and this is like a manifesto thing right here, you were writing a manifesto, right? Is those fucking limping scenes in games with regenerating health, where suddenly you're this badass soldier who was always shooting and taking cover and doing bandages and getting okay, and then suddenly there's a nuke in the background, so oh, now I'm limping, my health's not regenerating. That sucks.
Doug?
So we work with this kind of super cool underground rapper on GODZ. He rapped the title song lyrics and he did all the sound effects. And this guy is like goes way back. He was rapping before we were even born, and he like battled Eminem and shit. And yeah, working with him was really cool. But he came in when we were already set on like doing this game. So that's kind of why we met up, because hey, we're doing gangster stuff. Let's get a proper rapper who actually gets it in there.
Let's be serious about this.
Yeah, and he realized it was all super over the top, and he just loved it, and he was so productive. Like I sent him an email, hey, I need these sound effects. Next day I got like 500 sound effects in my inbox, and in that way everything shaped together. Like that's his view on things, but he came from our direction that we gave him, and that also changed the direction, and everything combines. And I guess it's kind of the normal work process. But
Did he shape the fiction per se, or that was like the whole backstory was really?
well, the fiction is kind of a personal thing for everyone on the team. So of course it changed the moment he came in, but
So
it's like it's not a set thing, you know. It's just there for us. And
the fiction is sort of a core thing, and it's somewhat open to interpretation. It isn't entirely limiting, as in this is it. This is this square thing. Like when he came in, that changed a bit of stuff. Like obviously because he has this completely different perspective on how this fiction works. So he brought in something that different. Like if we didn't have him, it would definitely have a different feel, I think, to it. But we had this sad fiction of this guy going into the hotel, the only building on Venus, working his way up, and then shooting the gun god.
yeah, and it did make us step us up our game. Like,
Yeah.
oh man, it's a proper rapper. Let's not put rap to shame.
I was just curious, at which point of the game development does usually the fiction come in? I mean, do you start with the fiction?
Well, we don't design like the mechanics and what kind of game we want from the fiction, but like the moment you start, it shapes, and you just have it alongside you the entire project.
So you never had like a case, like a project where you started with the fiction and then the game came.
Well, Luftreiser for one was like, oh, let's make a World War II Thunderbirds game,
And I think Yeti Hunter.
and Yeti Hunter as well, I guess, but that's more of that game is really focused on the fiction
Yeah.
and what comes out of that.
So yeah, no, it kind of differs. We usually start from like the game mechanics for a prototype, but then usually the fiction follows like right at the start. Like is the sooner you have that stuff down, the sooner you can all work from this fiction and build on top of it.
Yeah, we don't like making games from story, because in a way the game becomes the story. So we just let that happen.
Although you keep the fiction consistent by the development. I mean, not that you get a game element and you say, oh, that's not in the fiction, but you just say, okay, let's make the fiction so it fits the game element. You know?
Change the fiction for.
Yeah, we like the game is super important, but if something is super like, you can make anything consistent in a way, but it takes work. And if we want something in there, like maybe it also helps that we really get our games done the first 3 days, and then the rest is polish for every game we ever made. But yeah.
No, I think that the thing is that your fiction isn't necessarily limiting. It isn't something that stops you from doing stuff. It just makes sure you don't do random stuff, like what, a penguin with a machine gun or whatever.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah, exactly. So it stops you from doing that. Sorry? He said that was a cool idea, but like in GODZ, that would obviously never work because that's simply not the fiction. So it isn't necessarily, it isn't a limiting thing. It's a thing to work from, to agree on. Especially if you're working on teams, it's really useful to have like this sort of set core principles.
Yeah, and
in the fiction.
it's more that you're thinking about it while making everything, and it's not that it's something that has to be good. I think a game without a story would be better if it had a bad story that wasn't told in any way to the players.
Did that make sense? What he said? Good, lovely.
We don't.
We don't. No, Vlambeer. If you want a good idea of what it's like to be in our office, it's usually a lot of arguments about everything, and then at some point one of us convinces the other that something is a good idea.
Yeah.
We don't really do compromises because that sort of feels like the cheap way out. We always try to convince the other one, and since we're two people, that can last for days. Which it occasionally does.
It's horrible.
Yeah. But it does help us make like really well argued, thought out choices, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we argue a lot about them.
So does it mean you have the complete idea already in your
No, it shapes while working on it. Like a good example in GODZ is that all the the soundtrack has Venusian rap on it, so this guy was just making up stuff while he was rapping and putting it in the songs to make them sound good. And then we asked him, hey man, what does that song mean? And he's like, oh, I don't know, maybe about gun smuggling. And we're like, yeah, that's cool. And then that's added to there, and everything you make, like, oh, there's also gun smuggling in this world, but you're not involved with it, but it is there, so we have to make it a bit. You know, all those tiny decisions are influenced by that.
It's a pretty much organic process, but the fact that you have this sort of fertile ground to get that from really helps.
And you don't even need to agree on that. Like the final song, I believe that the text he's singing is about him going back to his wife and children, and he has a little farm, and he's sad about all the people he killed. But I don't think Rami agrees on that, probably.
No,
yeah,
really.
see?
It's just the ending of all things for me. Good. Any more?
How did you start the entire fiction thing? Did you like figure it out over the course of several games, or did you, for example, know that arcade games like Asteroids or Breakout had the extension?
No, I think every game does that to some extent anyway when you're making it, but we just... I think it's more of a thing we stumbled upon. Hey, we've been doing this for 2 years.
Like
yeah.
when somebody said typical Vlambeer game, that kind of gets your mind going as to what the hell is a typical Vlambeer game? We make this stuff, but why is this so typical? And then you start thinking about what makes our games, I think. And at that point, you sort of start to stumble upon things that define your games that you might not have realized. I think we did this for like all the way from Radical Fishing was our first game, so we were already doing this with Radical Fishing, and we have this story, and we discussed the story quite often while we were working on Ridiculous Fishing.
And that also gives you problems, by the way, because we were now making Ridiculous Fishing, having this phone call with Apple about it's the iOS version, by the way. They were like, yeah, I read this thing about him killing his wife. What's that? And I was like, no, that's all temporary text, you know. But you have to be careful about.
So no, we were apparently we have always been doing this. Only we didn't figure out that we did this until a while ago. But now that we have figured it out, we think it's a really core thing that helps us make the games we make, and we think it's generally a good idea to put some effort in your fiction. Because it works for us, it might work for you. We're not saying it will, but it's worth trying, right? Any more? Nobody? Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.